And within the first week of the marriage, he came home. We're on the 17th floor. He came home and the curtains were open, and he started calling me a whore for walking around the house without covering my hair and saying, everybody can see you.
Oh.
And so I talked back. I said, who's everybody? People in helicopters?
Oh,
Seagulls?
no.
Who are you afraid of? Yeah.
Mm.
So that was the first time that he beat me up. And when I went to my mom and I said to her, this man that you forced me to marry, look at my bruises, look at my face, look what he's done to me. And she said, are you stupid? Do you not know your religion? Have you not read Surah An-Nisa? Chapter 4, verse 34 explicitly says to men, if you fear disobedience or arrogance from your wives, beat them. You are his property. You were being arrogant when you talked back to him. He had every right to beat you up. So who am I going to go to? Allah, the creator of the universe, the Almighty, has given him permission to beat me. So the only thing that I can take away from that is this is your fault because you were arrogant. If you are never disobedient and if you are never arrogant, then you won't get beaten up, right? This is your fault. You can control this. And so I said to my mom, like, I was like, how could you have made me marry this man? Like, I'm just, not even a week into this marriage and he's already done this to me. What's the rest of my life going to look like? And then she turned to a different coercive method and she said, you've only been married for such a short time. If he divorces you now, everybody's going to say he divorced you because you weren't a virgin. And I can't. That's just going to dishonor me too much. As the head of the Islamic Studies Department of the Islamic School, I can't have people saying that my daughter wasn't a virgin and that's why he divorced you. Because you have to remember, in Islam, a man can divorce his wife, but there is no route for a woman to ask. Like, she can go to a judge and beg and plead for divorce. And but there's no like Islamic. Like in Islam, a man just has to say the words, I divorce you, with his magical mouth. He says, I divorce you. And 3 times he says it. And by the 3rd time, poof, magically you're divorced.
Oh.
There's no parallel to that for a woman. So when a divorce happens, the automatic assumption, of course, is that he divorced her. Because clearly there's no path for women to divorce their husbands.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, it will be too shameful if he divorces you now this early. People will say you weren't a virgin, and I'm not going to deal with that kind of dishonor on my name. So just stay with him a little bit longer. Just stay with him a little bit longer so that it's not it's not suspicious when you get divorced. So at this point, we're just about to go into an elevator because she's taking me back up to my apartment. And I said to her, okay, fine, but I'm not going to let him touch me in this month or however long you want me to stay, because I will not risk getting pregnant and end up getting stuck with this man. And then as the doors of the elevator are closing, after she just finished telling me that I have to accept him beating me, she says, you can't say no to him. Again, don't you know your religion? I'm the one being berated now. In Islam, a woman has no right to say no to her husband. So in the same way that he can beat you because you're his property, he can have sex with you because you are his property. You don't have the right to consent because you are just a thing that he owns. And if you don't let him, then all of the angels will curse you all night until morning. So you are the one who will be cursed. So basically she's telling me you have to allow this man to beat you and you have to allow this man to rape you.
Oh my gosh. is this, and forgive my ignorance, I'm learning all of this now. Is this explicitly stated in the Quran where, like, these are rules that you follow? So you had said in some of your previous interviews that I've seen that the Quran is supposed to be the literal word of Allah, and I think you mentioned that a minute ago. So it's not like the Bible where it's kind of like a collection of stories where you pull meaning from it. It's an actual rule book. Is that correct?
100% correct. It is an actual rule book. It is very specific. It's all rules. The whole thing is rules, right? Do this or Allah will curse you or you will burn in hell. And it's all very, very clear.
Okay.
And that's why we have all of these rules about like which hand to cut off for which infractions and, you know, how specifically to kill gay people, and all of these rules is all in the edicts of the religion.
Okay. So how did you survive this? How did you, I don't even know what to say. Moving forward, knowing that this is your fate, you're going back up to this man, knowing that these are the rules that he is supposed to live by and you're supposed to live by. How did you handle that?
I felt like there was no escape. Like there was, who do you go to? You know, I had already tried when I was 13 to go to my law enforcement and my government, and I had a judge throw me back into that abusive home and say, well, that's your culture, you know?
No, really?
Yeah.
You went to
Yeah.
him with your abuse
Yeah.
stories and he said, "Well,
Yeah.
that's your fault."
That's it. That's your culture. That's how your family chooses to discipline you.
What?
So had I been in court sitting there, a blonde haired, blue eyed girl with family from like friggin', you know, Denmark or Sweden or something, then he would have protected me. But because my family came from Egypt, it's like, well, that's your culture. That's how they choose to, you know, that's just how they
Oh my
are.
gosh, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of, that to me, essentially, that is the definition of racism.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this cultural appropriation, or sorry, this cultural relativism, this moral relativism that they do in that is so common. You know, in Canada, we've been doing it for so long, where you just turn a blind eye to atrocities if it's happening in minority groups because that's just the way they are. You know what I mean? Like this, it's like this bigotry of low expectations for these brown simpletons. You know, so we'll treat them differently. Take female genital mutilation, for example. You know, if a blonde haired, blue eyed mother and father took a razor blade to their daughter's genitals and sliced off her clitoris,
Oh.
those people would be in a psych ward or imprisoned, right? But when an Egyptian family or when a Somali family does it to their young girls, they get a pamphlet that educates them. Hey, you know what? You shouldn't do that. That's what they get.
Mm.
So behaviors are supposed to be criminal. Criminal behaviors are there's a pass that's given to different minority groups sometimes because of their misguided attempts at being culturally sensitive.
Right. Yeah, we've seen that with the Amish. A few interviews we've done with
Yeah.
Amish women who went to authorities and they're like, "Well, we know that the Amish handle their own misgivings and they're supposed to take care. We're not supposed to get involved." And you have these women, these girls going, "I was just raped and you're telling me you can't do anything about it?" It's so backwards.
Exactly. And so because I had already tried that when I was a young girl and failed, basically, I went home because I was taken out of school because, of course, they weren't going to allow any opportunity for me to ask for help from the outside world again. I believed at that time that Allah truly was all powerful. And if He wanted me to live this way, there was nothing that I could do to fight back against what He wanted to happen. And so when I was now, you know, at this point, I'm like 19 or 20 years old in his apartment, feeling like, who am I going to argue with? Who am I going to go to? Allah has given him permission to rape me and to beat me. So who's a higher authority than the creator of the universe? Who's a higher authority than the Almighty?
Right.
I had nowhere to go. This is it.